Well, hey, everybody. It's Alze Calhoun here at Coveted Consultant, and I'm here with a special guest. This is JR Atkins, who has founded and leads a group on LinkedIn specifically about the E-Myth book written by Michael Gerber. And I just wanted to get him on the line today and talk about the book, its core concepts, what his group is all about, what he's trying to accomplish. I think it'll be a good resource for all of us as consultants. So I won't spoil anything. I'll let him tell us, what the group is all about. So first, let me just welcome JR. JR, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and so glad to be here and talk about one of my favorite topics, the book and the practices of the E-Myth.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. So, JR, why did you start the group in the first place?
Well, my introduction to the E-Myth goes back actually to the early 90s. I had a good friend who was a sales trainer and consultant in that space, and he had recommended the book to me. I was an entrepreneur at the time working in the financial services industry, fell in love with the book and the ideas and a systematic approach to business, and then he and I met on a weekly basis to hold each other accountable to the things that we said that we were going to do based on the book. So with that background, as LinkedIn became a prominent social media tool in the business community for professionals, I guess it must have been about 2006 or so, I started the E-Myth group on LinkedIn as a way to connect with more people that were interested in this topic about growing their business using the principles of Michael Gerber and the E-Myth.
So for those who may not be familiar with the E-Myth and Michael Gerber, I read the book. I think it's a piece of genius. I actually have a couple of different versions and copies of the book, so I'm sold on what it's all about. But for those who may not be sold and may not be familiar, give us some of the basic principles that are present inside the E-Myth.
Well, by the way, his original work was first published in 1986. Some people may have seen him over time being advertising his material even online or on the television. He has about, there's probably 10 principles or so that center around this idea of what is the entrepreneur, which is what E stands for. What is this myth? For example, most of us get into business for some compelling reason. And it's usually not because you want to do more marketing or you want to deal with more employees or these other things that surround your business. Usually it may be something you like, making something or doing something or being involved in a certain something, and you get into the business to do that. But yet you've got to do all these other things. And these other things tend to distract us, pull us off course. Sometimes will dominate our lives and our business. Will suck the passion right out of us. So we wake up at some point in the business going, what am I doing? I spend more time doing these other things than the things that I really want to do in my business. So it's a call to action to get back on track and to focus on working on your business as well as in your business.
So you created the community to celebrate, further discuss, develop some of those ideas. How is that going? What kind of conversations are you seeing come about in the group?
Well, to answer the first, how's it going? Fairly well, but like with any group, over time you see ups and downs and ebbs and flows, the yin and the yang. And usually what causes the group activity to increase is when one or more people begin to have a passionate discussion. And then over time, attentions drift and the activity will go down some, and then sure enough, something will spark a conversation. Sometimes it's related to something going on in our world. It could be a political or socioeconomic topic that touches on the business. Other times it's just issues of business. I'm running into a brick wall with a certain area. Here's the solution I'm struggling with. What have you seen? What have you heard? What have you done? And those tend to be really the best and long-lasting and fervent conversations that I see where it will engage more people.
Now, we were talking offline about some of the hot topics that are a fit in what you just described. Can you list a couple of those, or say a couple of those, some of those topics that when they come up, they're normally highly discussed or often discussed?
Sure. So one of the principles that I mentioned is, you own your business, not in it. And in Chapter 9, Michael Gerber talks about, your business is not your life. Well, that sounds real good, but how do you do this realistically? And depending on either a person's nature, experience, personality, or even the business, they may have built a business model that if they remove themselves, it fails. So they can't go on vacation. They can't leave to go do workshops and development. They can't invest in themselves because the business really dominates their life. So that will usually create some discussion. On one side, someone will go, I can't see how to do this. And then on the other side will be someone who says, I've been in your place, and let me suggest some things. And yes, you can do it. Let me encourage you. I know it seems impossible now, but, stick with it. It's worth the difficulty. A lot of people are challenged with this idea that the time I tell you how to do it, I could have already done it twice. So I'm not going to teach you how to do it. I'm just going to go do it once and get on with life. Well, if you continue to perpetuate that, you as the owner tend to do everything. And, of course, a lot of us, we get our egos fed by that. And, so we can kind of get off on a rabbit path down this feeding my ego instead of feeding my business. Did you get in business to make money and make a living and help others, or did you just need something to feed your ego?
I got you. So while we're on that, how would someone know that they've hit that crossroads? How would you know? Let's say, as a leader of the E-Myth group, how do you know that someone has hit that crossroads of I am now overwhelmed? I got into business for a certain set of reasons. I am overwhelmed by all this other stuff, and I need serious help. How do you know?
Well, a couple of things I can think of right off the top of my head. One is you probably hadn't had a vacation in, years maybe. Or other people around you, you're not interacting with them. I mean, if it doesn't have to do with business, you don't talk to them. So this could be, even spouse and family, close friends. The nagging spouse is probably one of the biggest keys. If they're telling you, I never see you, you're always working, when the kids get up, you've already gone, and when they go to bed, that's when you come home. We haven't had meal. These are some things that says I'm really maybe overcommitted, or I haven't figured out how to make the business operate at the level I want to while keeping some balance in the rest of the areas of my life. Those are probably some of the indicators that I see.
So these are the conversations happening in the group. And so if thinking of as you think about that, if there was a magical gift that you could give everybody in the group, what would that gift be?
It would relate to Michael's Gerber's principle of setting the systems up in your business, the organizational strategy, the systems and procedures, so that the business will operate without you, the owner, always having to have your hand in it. He talks about how important it is to take on a role perhaps as yourself, fulfill that role, then build the cookbook or the recipe book or the SOP, standard operating procedures for that. Then you bring someone in and train them, and then you go do another role. So those systematic approaches, if I could somehow deliver that system and help someone implement it, that would be probably one of the greatest gifts I could give any business owner.
JR, I think that's really strong. I was going to ask you to give an example. You just did, but I want to highlight that by let's see if we can find an example. So what you just described was business owner, if you know you're overwhelmed, then you do the role, develop a cookbook, as you called it, SOPs, for the role, and then hire somebody to take that over. I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give an example of that? What's an example of a role that
Sure.
the business owner could own today and then develop a recipe, et cetera, et cetera?
Sure. It was, in Dallas, there's a moving company I did some work with that had been in business 25 years. So obviously they had some procedures down. But, when you start focusing on the book and the principles of the E-Myth, you get to go back and tweak things. And sometimes the SOP develops by default. You had someone in the role who developed a way of doing it, and as the owner, leader, manager of the company, you let it go because it was working to some extent, and maybe there's another area of the business in crisis, so you go focus on that. Just because you have a procedure doesn't mean it's the best procedure or the best procedure for today or the best procedure based upon the people and the market you're serving today versus it. So sometimes a business will be reluctant to look at areas that are, quote, working, unquote. Why, if my accounts receivable is working, why do I need to tweak it? Well, with a closer look at the procedures, you might notice how much money is leaking out of that you never recapture. In this business, the moving business, you have damages. It's a part of the business. You're moving people's furniture, and as hard as you try to wrap and protect things happen. And depend on the policies and procedures around that, and balancing when do we go with the customer and say whatever it takes to make you happy versus when do we say we've done the best we can. Yes, we're sorry. We've repaired. We've done some things. And looking at that part of that business was one area we were able to help both customer service and improve the margin or the leakage that was happening there. And part of it is customer service. One of the corrections had to do with how fast the company responded, how they responded, and dealt with things. So a quick response, and people, would you like to know what the number one thing people wanted to hear, the customers?
What's that?
I'm sorry. You're right. This piece of furniture is damaged. Let's work together to fix it. That was the number one thing they needed to hear to feel like the moving company was on their side and they were going to be taken care of. And, when you think about it, that's all training and procedures and having the right person there. That didn't have anything to do with money, and they hadn't spent any money yet. It was on how they handled it. So, anyway, that would be an example of looking at the SOP, an existing company, trying to make them better, and doing both a customer service improvement as well as saving loss that was occurring in that area.
That's a good example. Thank you for sharing that. I hope that's something that people they don't get lost in the industry and go, well, I'm not a mover. That's not my business, and that doesn't affect me. When truthfully, that dynamic is present in any business that had a way of doing things, and you could benefit the business and that system by taking a second look at it. So hopefully folks grab that part of it and don't get lost in the I'm not a moving company.
Well, and the other part of that, LJ, is, we have so many more channels now for consumers to air their grievances that if we don't jump on it quickly when we first hear about it and give them assurances that we're going to take care of them and then do it, there are so many ways for it to go wrong and show up on Facebook or Yelp or other review sites. So, I think the pressure is on us as business owners to really work on those customer service issues as a part of our standard operating procedure and what we see in the email.
Yes, sir. Great point. So I want to be sure to ask you while we've got audience, we've got members of your group who are listening to this interview, and then we've got some folks who are considering joining your group, also listening to the interview. So, what question would you like to ask of those folks who are in your community and you want to be of even more service to them. What question would you like to ask them?
Well, probably the first question was, are we providing what the members current members are needing, would be my first concern. And then second of all, it would be a request to anybody, potential or current members, to figure out a way to systematically interact with us. I've heard back from people who will say, whenever I go to the group and I ask questions, I always get good value, but then I go away and I don't participate until I have another crisis. Whereas if you can figure out a way, put it on your schedule to once a week, every other week, once a day, once a month, whatever your regularity is, to work it in, that's one of the things I'd ask of our group, from what I hear about the value they receive from the discussions.
There was a phrase you gave to me offline, and I want to remind you to say it again now. You said you can't expect your business to grow without customers, and ... Do you remember the rest of it?
Yes, I do. And you can't expect your relationships to grow without interaction. And LinkedIn and through groups is an excellent way for us as business owners to grow relationships. For one, like we're talking about here, this accountability or this encouragement, this answer and support, but also for building customer relations. And those questions and answers can turn into customer relations as well. So, there's two big benefits for us to go and participate in relationship building through a LinkedIn group such as this.
So, as a final question here, for someone, and you may have just said it, but let's go ahead and drive it all the way home. For someone who's new to the community and they've been excited by the interview, what would be your suggestions to get the most out of the group?
Read some dialogue and get a feel for the nature of the group, and then begin to think, how does this conversation relate to my business? And when you find those areas of relationship, it could be accounting, human resources, legal issues, banking and finance, marketing, sales, think of all the different parts of a business. And you might even evaluate where you need help and then engage the community. And the community engagement really is a broad swath. You'll find people who have just started the business to businesses that have been around, years. You'll find there's even a community of consultants within our group. Some of them are certified by Michael Gerber and his company. Some have just, been through the ringer so many times, they have years of experience. So there's a broad swath of people that you can call on for insight. And remember, group membership and participation is free. But then also you get out of it what you put into it. So if you come with these good, hard questions, you'll get good, solid answers. In return, you'll build relationships, and over time, relationships can turn into business partnerships or customer relationships.
Excellent. So, is there anything else, JR, that should be said? Floor is yours, just to make sure we didn't miss anything.
I'd say that keep in mind, as you're a group member, whether it's in this LinkedIn group or others, I know we periodically will have special programs, much like the one today. It could be a webinar, a conference call, an online discussion, and I just encourage people to look for those. And if they're on a topic that is interest and relates to your business, please join and participate. I hear a lot of good feedback from those extra special programs that we offer.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you again, JR, for your time, for just kind of hanging out with us here and having this conversation, having the interview. Appreciate your input and your leadership of the group.
Thank you, Jose. You have a great day, and thanks for interviewing me.